Hi guys, it's Kelly Roberts with Kelly Roberts Wellness and Beach Pilates and Wellness Studio in Bethany Beach, Delaware. I just want to reach out to my Ehlers-Danlos clients again because I've had so much feedback on everybody doing their exercises and feeling like some people felt like it was really hard, some thought that they wanted a little bit more challenge. So I thought I would do another video so that everybody can use the modifications. If they want to increase their workout, they can. If they want to reduce it, they can also. If you saw my other video, you know I have Ehlers-Danlos also, so some days can be really challenging. Some days you don't want to feel like moving and you're hurting. Those are the days you probably don't want to push yourself. And then there's some days that you feel really good. You should feel a lot of core work. You don't want a lot in the joints, so that's why Pilates is great because it's easier on the joints than a lot of other exercises, but this can prolong your activity and your lifestyle. So just a little couple of movements a day will do huge benefits if you can make yourself get to that movement part. If you don't feel right while you're doing it, if it doesn't feel good, then stop, don't do it, don't continue to go. Try it another day, or maybe reduce the amount of time or repetitions if you want. Sometimes that's easier. So say you can't do 5 pelvic curls, but you can get through 2, give yourself a day to rest, move on the next day and try to do 3. Everybody has different levels of pain tolerance and what they have going on. Everybody knows Ehlers has so many limitations and injuries. What one person has, someone else might not have. So everybody has different ranges of movement and pain. So I just want to put that out there. So don't force yourself. If you don't feel good doing it, then don't do it. It's just going to lead to more injuries. So what we're going to start with are just simple exercises today. I know pelvic curls were something some people said they had a hard time doing. So we're going to just work on rolling down if you can get yourself to the floor, and then find that neutral pelvis. Remember, it should be a 2-finger space between your mat and your back. So you don't want to be popped. You shouldn't feel like your rib cage is up, and you don't want to be so tucked back that your lumbar spine is smashing. You should be able to slide your fingers through, and if you put a hot cup of coffee or a glass of wine right on your bladder, you should be able to balance it where it's not moving. Right. So for the people that are having a hard time with like that rolling back and it's really bothering their SI joint, if you just keep your pelvis stable, like you have that hot cup of coffee on it, and you just think of your belly button sinking to your spine, so you're flattening your abdominal wall. So all you have to do is hold it for a couple seconds and then release. So I know it doesn't feel like a lot, but if you can really engage your core, any little bit amount is gonna make your abs stronger, and it's gonna keep your lower back protected. It's gonna work with that SI joint. So your transverse muscle looks like a big rubber band that wraps all the way around. And when you have lower back, SI joint instability, which I have a lot, it slides in and out a lot, it's from a weak pelvic floor. So you have to think of zipping up a pair of jeans that don't fit and really just deepening the core. For people that can move through those pelvic tilts, we're gonna roll it back and then you push away. So you just have to remember that you keep your inner thighs active, those heels stay in line with your sit bones, and this is always just the perfect exercise to start to warm up, especially if you have lower back tension or soreness. I mean, I always do these almost multiple times a day, just get on the floor to try to get that little bit of movement through the sacrum and that rolling of the pelvis. But you want your core to do the work. Remember, your glutes are the big muscles, they like to fire, so you want to make sure that your abs are doing that tilt back and forth. So if you think of you're kind of just rolling back to take your tailbone off the floor, and then you push back to kind of give yourself that little arch, like you're going to push the tailbone back down. So just one more. So again, if you can do the pelvic curls, do those. If you're just working on that sinking, pull the belly button in, hold for 5 seconds, bring yourself back to resting, and go back in. The more you can engage your core and keep it engaged the whole time, the stronger it's going to get. So just work on the time. All right, interlace your fingers. They're going to go onto the natty part of your neck. So necks are a lot with Ehlers-Danlos also, so you want to let your head just kind of cradle heavy in your hands. When you lift your chest into flexion, if you think of holding a lemon under your chin, you're going to hold that lemon so your eyes look straight at your belly button or right between your knees, and then you're going to roll it back. So again, it's exhale to lift, close down your rib cage, close down your abdominal wall, and think of pulling up that pelvic floor up under your rib cage. The slower you go in Pilates, the more results and the better it is because you keep that stabilization, so your core has to work harder than moving through it. Your pelvis keeps the control. All right, so as you start to lift, you gotta remember not to pull forward on your neck, but your head should just cradle heavy
And you want to keep your eyes and your gaze down at your belly button. So when you keep your head up, it makes that tension in the back of the neck because you're elongating and not keeping that curvature of your chin. So don't just crunch and slam it forward. And then you want that resistance back again. So if you feel comfortable going up into that flexion, you're going to add a little rotation. So the pelvis stays completely still. You want to think of your elbow going up over your knee, and if you think of the shortening of the rib cage, your last rib is going to reach for your hip bone, so you're getting that shortening of the waist. If you can stay up in the center and rotate to the other side, keep going where you stay lifted. If you need to come back to the center and roll it back to kind of reset, that's fine too. So you want your inhale to lift, exhale to add your rotation, back to center, roll it back, and reset. So you just got to remember that you don't tuck back into your pelvis. It stays in that neutral pelvis where you keep that hot cup of coffee. So lift, use your breath into that exhale to rotation. Inhale to center, exhale to rotate. Good. So do 2 more. Stay lifted if you can. If you feel like you're shifting in your hips, just make your rotation smaller. So you might not be able to go as far as I'm rotating. So you might be able to only go here. That's totally fine, as long as you're keeping the stability from the hip down. Okay. And then we're gonna roll it back. So a lot of people have hamstring tightness too from having to sit, or you don't get that extension. So if you're only here and you can pull in, that's fine. If you can get that extension through the back of your knee and try to get that elongation, think of it just like a stretch for a second, especially if you're super tight. You don't want to pull behind your knee, either pull behind your hamstring, or you can walk your hands up to your calf if you feel like you're strong enough in your core. So you're gonna pull just once and then roll it back. We'll switch to the other side just to get that stretch first before I move through the motion. So that long extension out through the back of the leg again, and just get that stretch. And again, like I said, if you can come up and you feel like you can stabilize in your core to lift up, then do that. All right, so if you want to go into a scissor, which is going to be, this is a little bit more challenging and harder advanced exercise, but if you pull twice towards your forehead and then you switch like a pair of scissors, this all stays still to do that length. If you don't think you can get there, you can do the same thing, keep your head back, and you can just pull your leg towards you, bend your knee, drop it to the mat, bring the other leg back up, and then just give yourself that stretch. If you want to do the 2 pulse, you can also do that. So you can reach it out, take your time, and then you can break it down into that modification. If you feel like you want to roll up and pull to get that stretch, because it's going to run all the way back down the back of your hamstring, then you can take your head back, take your leg back, and then roll yourself back up. All of it's totally fine. Use the modification that works. You can also do, you got to bend your knee, take yourself back, take the leg out, drag the knee in, bring it up. All that works to get that extension to the back of your hamstring. It doesn't matter if you're not into that flexion yet, if you don't have a strong core. If you want it again the harder way, you're gonna stay lifted and scoot. So this is really a beginner exercise, but someone with Ellers is not gonna be able to just jump on the floor and do this. So if something you wanna work up to, just go where you're comfortable again, pull, and switch. Yeah, then just roll back, pull the knees to the chest, go where you're comfortable. It's just a resting stretch. Okay, we're gonna go on your side. So just flip yourself over, try to bring your arm out straight. If it feels too much on your wrist to keep your head holding with your arm, then do it long way. So just rest your head down, make sure that you're comfortable. Try to keep a mouse hold between your rib cage and your mat. So you kind of want to think of stacking your hips. So most people tend to roll back into their glute, like kind of toss their pelvis back. It might be hard to see in the video, so you want to stay forward. Try to stack your hips and work on your oblique. So both legs are going to lift up and lower, and then you're going to come halfway back to the floor, so you're hovering to get into that resting position. So you're going to squeeze to lift up and down. You can put your palm to the floor, just don't push into it so much, just it's there for balance if you need it to lift and lower. And again, it's oblique work. So when you lay on your side, it's easy to kind of like toss your belly forward. You got to pull it in tight. If you think of your body in between 2 panes of glass, that might help if you think of it like that, where you want to stay in those 2 panes. If that 2-leg lift is too much, just do 1 leg and keep that bottom leg to the floor. and work on not trying to toss up and pull down and toss up. So try not to think like Jane Fonda, but that lift and then that lower. So if you think of it again, you want to fight gravity as you squeeze your ankles, or if you think of a ball between your thighs, like if you have a yoga ball or a Pilates ball that you're squeezing together. One more. All right, flex your feet, and you're gonna make real tiny circles. So if you think of the smallest circle like you're stirring a pot of soup, you don't want it to come from where you're tossing through your pelvis. You should be able to stabilize, so you just have that extension of your hip to do that little tiny circle. 3, 2, and 1, reverse it. Use your breath, and then keep checking your belly. I tell my clients in the studio, sometimes if you put your finger in your belly button, you can kind of tell if you're engaging it all the time, because it's kind of like you automatically draw on to kind of get away from it. Last one. All right, take your bottom leg and curl it, or bend it in. Take your top leg, and you're just gonna lift and lower this one. So just a lift and lower. And that leg, where it is gonna help you stabilize a little bit more to try to get into your oblique. Once you feel comfortable with that little stacking of the hip, or pulling that leg forward, the longer way and the harder way to find that stabilization is to take that leg out and do the same thing of that lift and lower. 2, good, and 1, and you should feel it like right back into that glute. All right, just bend your knees, bring yourself up, and we're just gonna do a little side stretch. So just reach up, try to take your arm right over here. So watch the closing down, but like that elongation, you should get that big, long side stretch. Good, and then just swing your legs around. Do the other side. So again, take your arm out straight, or you can cradle your head if you feel better that way. So both legs are gonna lift up and then lower down. So remember, you wanna stay forward on your hip. Try to keep that little mouse hole between your rib cage and your mat. If you feel like you're like getting up into your neck, try to keep that little lift. Just make sure that you're stacking your hips. So if you kind of have to sink into the mat a little bit to find your stabilization, you can. Remember, your hand you can use for balance. If it's too much lifting both legs, keep that bottom leg to the floor, and then that just lift and lower. Good, awesome. All right, flex your foot. Remember, you're gonna use that bottom leg for stability, so keep it to the mat, and then you're just going into those little hip circles. Find the control and that extension of your hamstring and your hip so that you're not moving through your whole body. Last one. And then you got that reverse to circle and pull it back. 3, 2, and 1. Good. Okay, remember, bend your knee. Try to line it up hip to pelvis. Top leg lifts and lowers. You can point or you can flex wherever you feel like you get more into that IT band, into that back of your glute, but you want that oblique to fire. So again, like if you need to put your fingers there to try to see that your abs are kicking in, and then make sure those abs are really deepening. Last 2. And 1. Okay. Curl your knees in. Use your palm to help you lift. And then you've got that big side stretch. So remember, it's going over your ear, elongate. If you think of someone kind of grabbing your wrist and kind of pulling your arm over your head so that you don't get into that close down with that elongation. So you should get that big, huge side stretch. And then just bring it back. Great. Everybody hates back extension, including me most of the time. But this is the best for trying to get those postural muscles to get open. So, the advanced move of swimming is to come up and do alternate. It's really hard to get in there without getting into your lower back. So just the modification is to tilt your pelvis forward. So try not to be in a sway back, but I don't know if you can tell, like tilting forward, your arm is pushing your pubic bone into the mat. You're gonna put your hands to the floor and you're just gonna lift into that extension. And then you can just drop your head between your arms. So you're gonna push, lift, and extend, and lower. So exhale, lift, push and lift into that extension, lower it down. Right, if you wanna challenge yourself and get into that swim a little bit more, push through your palms to lift, take your legs up, lower it down. So again, you gotta be careful, not getting into your lower back or your lumbar spine. Your core is engaged so that when you lift your legs, you feel right here engage your lower back, but you shouldn't get any tension. One more. All right, as you progress, the next step is going to be lift one left, your right arm and your left leg, and bring it down, and then switch and lift. So you got to keep both hip bones to the mat. So it's easy to kind of like roll off of it into it. You want to lift and extend, lift and extend. So you should have that elongation through the back and that stabilization of your core to lift and reach. So again, you don't want to lift and kind of roll your pelvis back because it's going to go straight into that lumbar spine. All right, another one you can do if you start to feel like you're comfortable there and your core is getting strong enough is to lift both arms and legs like you're Superman, and drop it down. So you go into that extension and lower. So they're all right. Again, you just do where you're comfortable, where you feel like you're strong in your core to lift and lower. All right, and then the advanced swimming. It's not really totally advanced, but it feels like it. Get into your core, tuck your hips forward. You're gonna go opposite arm, opposite leg. So again, you gotta watch the movement too much through the body. It's just a lift, and a lift. Good, and then just bring yourself down. All right, if you're okay to go into that child's pose, sit back into your hips. I know sometimes on the knees, it's hard to get into that release of the lower back. If you can tolerate being on your wrist or on your knees on that mat, you can always go up on fists. Sometimes that makes it better on my wrist too, is like keeping that long structure instead of that break and putting the weight. So you gotta draw into your lats and you just go into cat and cow. And then you can sink it down and open up. So inhale, scoop. Exhale, extend. And just as more you can get into that rounding of the upper back, you should be able to get that opening of that scapula, release of any tightness, the opening of the spine, and tucking under should open up in that sacral joint also. And back. One more. Good. All right, then you just cross your ankles and sit back. If cat and cow is too much, on hands and knees. You can also do where you're comfortable and hold here, and you can kind of rock back and forth. So it kind of gives you like a little bit of a back massage. You're getting reach of those extra muscles that are really, really tight. And you don't have to rock real far, but just a little bit. And you can even go into circles if you want. And you can also do that rotation of like dropping your knees lightly, arms to the other side. So you're gonna get all that opening of the rib cage, that opening of the lower back. And then you just make sure you switch sides so you got that rotation on both. And then just plant your feet, and you can grab the thighs to bring yourself back up so that you're safely bringing yourself back up. And then that's just a couple extra exercises for Ehlers-Danlos. I know I had some comments about wrists, shoulders, knees, and ankles. So some of those are a little bit more where you're gonna push yourself. So like I said, start where you feel comfortable. If it doesn't feel good, then don't keep progressing. Give yourself some time. It takes a while to develop your core. Pilates should be slow, controlled. It's gonna take someone with Ehlers a little bit longer than it is for someone that doesn't have it. Be good to yourself, listen to your body, and I'll see you in the next video.